What if everything you are, every memory, every virtue, every flaw was about to be erased by a flood, and you were given an ark with only one space left? What single part of your soul would you save to rebuild your entire world from scratch? This question, this impossible choice, is not a hypothetical exercise. It is the oldest question humanity has ever asked itself. It is a question that lies buried deep within a single, terrifying memory. A memory of a flood that drowned the world. This memory has been told not once, but 3 times. By 3 different civilizations, each giving a profoundly different answer. This is not the story your history books told you. This is a journey into a shared trauma, an exploration of a story that reveals not just who our ancestors were, but which of them is looking back at you when you stare into the mirror of your own chaos. This is the story of the flood that drowned the world, seen through the eyes of the 3 souls who survived it. Our journey begins in the dust and heat of ancient Mesopotamia, in the cradle of civilization. Inside the oldest story ever written down by human hands, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Here, humanity's greatest sin was not wickedness, not corruption, not hatred. Their sin was that they were alive. They were loud. Their laughter and their arguments and their lovemaking and their building echoed into the heavens. And the gods, the celestial landlords of creation, could not get their rest. Imagine the divine pettiness, the cosmic irritation of being so powerful that the sound of life itself became an annoyance. The gods, led by the storm god Enlil, decided that the only solution to their insomnia was a final, silent, watery grave for all of mankind. But one god, Ea the trickster, the lord of wisdom, felt a pang of something akin to pity, or perhaps he simply delighted in subversion. He couldn't warn a mortal directly, for that would be treason against the divine council. So he whispered the secret to the wall of a reed hut, a desperate, treasonous murmur meant for the ears of the man sleeping inside. Utnapishtim. The command was pure madness. Tear down your house, build a boat, abandon your possessions, seek life, load the seed of all living things into the boat you will build. Think of the sheer audacity of it. Utnapishtim, a man of wealth and status, suddenly commanded to become a pariah, a madman, building a colossal vessel on dry land, telling his questioning neighbors that he must leave because the god Enlil hates him. A clever lie to mask a terrifying truth he could not dare to speak. For 7 days, he built a frantic smell of bitumen and cedar filling the air, a race against a silent, unseen clock. Then the storm came, a violence so profound, a darkness so absolute, that it terrified the very gods. Who had unleashed it? The text says they cowered like wet dogs at the edge of heaven. Ishtar, the goddess of love, screaming like a woman in childbirth, weeping for the children she had just condemned to the abyss. Imagine that. The creators cowering in terror from their own creation, a cosmic tantrum with humanity as the collateral damage. For 6 days and 7 nights, the world was annihilated, until the great boat came to rest on the peak of Mount Nisi. Utnapishtim opened a window and looked out upon the devastating silence. And he wept, for all of humanity, all of its noise and striving, had been turned to clay. He survived, yes, but what did he survive for? To be the lone custodian of a world of ghosts. Utnapishtim's story is the story of modern existential dread. It is the chilling feeling that washes over you when you realize you are just a number on a spreadsheet. Your entire career and livelihood, erasable by a corporate algorithm deciding on budget cuts you will never understand. It is the homeowner whose life savings are wiped out by a market fluctuation, decided in a boardroom 1,000 miles away by people who do not know their name. It is the quiet, creeping terror that your life, your work, your love, your very existence can be deemed insignificant by vast, impersonal forces you cannot see, cannot reason with, and cannot fight. It's the profound realization that sometimes there is no grand moral reason for suffering. There is only power, and you are simply in its way. Utnapishtim understood this silent scream of the powerless. The timeless, brutal lesson his survival teaches us is that sometimes survival is not about being good or being righteous. It is about being resilient, being clever, and finding the strength to carry on in a universe that does not always care if you exist at all. Centuries later, the echo of this memory of water and ruin resurfaced, this time in the arid deserts of the Middle East, carried on the winds that swept across the sands of Canaan. in the story of Noah. But here the catalyst for destruction is profoundly different. It is not the noise of humanity that breaks God's heart, it is the silence of its virtue. The text says, "The earth was corrupt in God's sight, and was full of violence, and God was grieved to his heart that he had made man on the earth." This is not the anger of an irritated landlord. This is the profound, soul-crushing sorrow of a heartbroken father looking at a beloved creation that has become a monster. And so, he chooses not the cleverest man, but the only righteous man, Noah. Imagine the crushing burden, the terrible loneliness of being the last good man. Your commission is not just to build a boat. It is to become the curator of a planetary museum, while being the sole witness to a global funeral. For 120 years, ancient traditions say Noah built and he preached, mocked and ridiculed by his neighbors, as he constructed his monument to a faith that no one else could see. A strange vessel for a rain that had never fallen. Can you feel the weight of every single hammer blow? Each one a tick of the clock, counting down to the end of the world as we know it. And then comes the most heartbreaking and terrible moment in the entire narrative, the closing of the door. God himself seals Noah inside the ark. An act of salvation that is also an act of final judgment, sealing the fate of everyone outside. The laughter of the mockers turning to the desperate pounding of fists on gopher wood, turning to screams, turning to a final, devastating silence. The waters rose not as a fit of divine rage, but as a surgical, agonizing flood of purification. A baptism that drowned the world to save it from its own self-destruction. And after the destruction, after the grief, came a promise. A celestial signature painted across the weeping clouds. The rainbow, a covenant, a divine vow that this would never happen again. Noah's story is the story of survivor's guilt. It is the profound and isolating burden of being the one who makes it out. It is the feeling of the person who breaks free from a toxic family or a dead-end town, only to look back and see their relatives and friends still drowning in dysfunction and despair. It is the feeling of the soldier who returns home when their comrades do not, forced to live with the question, "Why me?" It is the quiet agony of the one who succeeds, who escapes, who is saved, only to carry the ghosts of those who were not so fortunate. Noah was righteous, but his salvation was not a party. It was a sentence to remember, a sentence to carry the weight of an entire world lost. When you have clawed your way out of a dark place, a depression, an addiction, a failure, have you ever felt that strange pang of guilt when looking at those still struggling? That is Noah's heart, the silent scream of the survivor. The timeless lesson Noah teaches us is that salvation isn't freedom from pain. It is the profound responsibility to build a new world worthy of the memory and the sacrifice of the old one. And now our journey takes us east, across the great mountains to the fertile plains of ancient India, where a third memory of the flood surfaces. But this one is filtered through a completely different, mystical consciousness. Here, in the story of Manu, there is no sin, no divine anger, no noise. There is only the cosmic rhythm of time. The great cycles of creation, preservation, and dissolution known as the Yugas. Manu, the father of all mankind in this new age, is not commanded by God in a vision. He is saved because of a single, small, unthinking act of compassion. While bathing, a tiny fish swims into his hands and begs for protection from the larger fish in the river Manu. Moved by pity places the fish in a small bowl, the fish quickly outgrows it, so he moves it to a pot, then a lake, and finally the ocean. At each stage, the fish, who is an avatar of the great god Vishnu, reveals its true nature and its purpose. A flood will come, it says. At Pralaya, a dissolution that will destroy everything. It is time, build a great ship and I will save you. Notice the profound difference. The flood is not a punishment. It is a natural event, like winter following autumn. It is simply time for the world to be cleansed, to make way for the new. The ship Manu builds does not carry pairs of animals in a purely physical sense. The texts say he carried the seeds of all life and, most importantly, the 7 great sages, the rishis. His mission was not merely to save the material world. His mission was to save its wisdom, the knowledge, and the spiritual DNA of humanity for the next world age. He was not saving a creation, he was preserving a blueprint for the future. These 3 stories are 3 mirrors held up to the face of chaos. The indifferent gods of Mesopotamia reflect our primal fear of a random, meaningless universe where we are victims of circumstance. The heartbroken God of the Bible reflects our deep-seated, desperate need for meaning, for morality, for justice, for a belief that our choices matter. The cosmic order of India reflects our quest for acceptance, for peace, and our understanding that our sacred duty is to preserve knowledge and beauty through the inevitable cycles of destruction and rebirth. These stories survived for millennia, not because they were about water. They survived because they are about us. They reveal how we cope, how we find meaning, and who we become when the waters rise. They are a testament to the one thing more powerful than any flood: the human need to build an ark of hope in a sea of despair, and to believe against all odds that a new world is waiting on the other side of the rain. So I ask you again, the question we began with, a question that is no longer hypothetical but deeply personal. The flood is here. The waters are rising in your life, in your career, in your heart, and the ark has only one space left. What single part of your soul are you saving to rebuild your entire world from scratch? Tell us in the comments below, because every scroll holds a story, and yours deserves to be told.